Sydney says, Dear Dutch and James, I grew up watching wrestling on local TV and attended events at the old Tucson Sports Center, watching people like Don Arnold, the Dupree brothers, Louis Martinez, and Tito Montez. Did you ever wrestle in Phoenix or Tucson metro area? And if so, do you have any stories of those guys?
No, when I started, I think that territory was, I don't know if it was running then. It didn't run long. Because how I heard about even them there being a territory in that Tucson, Arizona, and that area was Buddy Fuller. Buddy Fuller, an old-time promoter, used to go in and buy territories for nothing, basically, build them up a little bit till he could find a buyer, and he'd hit the road. So if he bought he bought the territory, this is years ago, say he bought the territory for $10,000, he would just want to get it up to where he could sell it for $25,000 or $30,000 and give him enough time. And he would start back working then too. And I think he would bring his sons in. So it was a family deal, and they would get it up to where it was kind of starting to thrive a little bit. And then he would sell that territory and leave. And guess what happened to the territory when he left?
He would die.
Boom,
so that's how you do it then. So he'd bring Ron and Robert in to be the stars.
Well, he would bring
the
them
territory
in
a little bit, get exciting, and then off we go.
Yep. And he would bring it, and he just ran it back. Wrestling 101. That's how he booked it. And he would book, and he would start working too. And Buddy Fuller, he really understood this business. He gave me actually one of not my first booking job, but he gave me my first job outside of where I broke in Georgia. You know, I went to Knoxville, and he had taken it over, and Ron was running it. I don't think Robert was there, but Ron was running it, and they did big business there. Because, you know, and I've talked about Ron Fuller before. I think he's probably one of the unheard of heroes of the wrestling business, because he didn't go to the mainstream territories like Charlotte, went to Florida one time, but he said, and he went to Memphis one time, he said, screw that. And I'll tell you that story in just a second. But he would take a territory, a virgin territory, or virgin area that didn't have a territory before, and make it into a territory and get it running. He would run little towns like only maybe 10,000 population and do 1,500 people in the high school gym, because they would come from miles around, and he just knew how to book. And Buddy taught him all this. And he ended up selling that territory too, not because he wanted to, because he had opposition, because he had a territory there, and all the guys saw how much money that territory was doing. They all went opposition to him and pulled away. And that's where he ended up selling that territory. And I don't know, he didn't buy he just took it over, I think. He took it over from a guy that was just running a town, Knoxville. I forgot what the guy's name is, but he bought it for nothing almost. And probably in a couple of years, or probably about 5 years later, he ended up selling it for about $100,000, $200,000. So
at one point, wasn't he running two promotions?
He was.
I'm talking about
running,
Ron Fuller. Was it like not Clearwater?
Continental.
There was Continental, but was there not also somewhere in Florida he was running at the same time, like Gulf Coast or something?
Well, that is what I'm saying. Gulf
Coast.
It?
I thought it was Alabama.
Continental and Gulf Coast was kind of the same thing.
I see.
You know, and then he was running Knoxville too. Then he sold Knoxville to and then he ended up selling Continental to a guy named David Wood, I think, that owned the TV station in Montgomery. Sold that for a hell of a lot of money, more than he paid for it, I'm sure. Then he got into the hockey business,
Oh yeah,
and that's where he made his big money.
yeah. We've talked about the hockey thing quite a few times. It was with Ron Fuller as well, so hunt out that full episode. I encourage you to, because it's a good story.